So while it is, restructuring debt always requires you to, I want to say, kick the can down the road a little bit.
She is a lovely person, warm, intelligent, just kind of gullible. It's like every word out of her mouth makes you want to be like, oh, honey.
Under item O, I need a motion and a second to approve the 2020 financing project resolution authorizing and directing the issuance of general obligation bonds series of 2020 in the maximum aggregate principal amount of $3,840,000 and general obligation notes series 2020 in the maximum aggregate principal amount of $1,710,000, providing the proceeds of the bond shall be used to refund all or portions of the school district's general obligation note series of 2014, general obligation series of note series of 2017, general obligation bonds series of 2014, general obligation bonds series of 2015, and general obligation bonds series A of 2015, enclosure 14. Need a motion and a second, please.
Prior to this motion, can we please table this one as well? I sent an email as soon as this came out, and after the Finance Committee meeting where they're talking about even looking at borrowing more money on the backs of this stakeholders because they need cash flow for money they're already overspending that's going to cost this district millions of dollars more. And when I sent an email this weekend, or not this weekend, but after the Thursday over this whole weekend period, that seeking the information regarding these bonds so that this board can make an educated decision would be beneficial. I had reviewed with our directors their depth of knowledge on this bond process, and I have found not only Nathan and Rita and Wayne and Steve and even myself and Gail to lack the pertinent data required to evaluate because our administration has failed to provide it to this board. And I can prove that in front of everybody, or we can just recognize that you guys don't have the information to make this educated decision. And I think it would be wrong to move forward without that information. And this is no hurry. Like she said, this is just a exploratory, but it looks like you're shoving something through and you got a lot of other problems to deal with.
My comment to that, Mr. Bradley, would be yes, it's just simply to see if we can. It doesn't mean we're going to. What those bonds are at this point has nothing to do with whether we want to see if we can refinance them or not. So I understand your wanting everything all the time to look at it first. But quite honestly, sir, the reason we hire professionals is because many of the things, and it's evident by what I hear you say, you're supposed to be a businessman. You argue about closing procedures. You argue about closing years. Now you're arguing about we can't make a decision if we want to finance until we see the old bonds. And that to me is totally ridiculous.
Yet in those old bonds might have the interest rate that you're currently paying. That old bond might tell you what the cost of that old bond was to recast one. What do you think you're paying PFM to do this exploration? Or do you think they're doing it for free? And the same argument you guys have made over, I don't know, let's say saving money with an elementary center. Well, we're just going to move forward a little bit and see how it goes. We're just going to move forward a little bit. We're just going to, and I'm worried that that's what's creeping up here. And you're going down a path where you do trust your administrators, where you do trust your professionals that are profiting from the process. Way too much, Rita. You should be a little more cynical and a lot less hypocritical. Thank you. It is the transparency that allows the public to help you make these decisions. And I bet there's a lot of people in this public that knows how to read a bond, like myself, that offered to help Dave Kraus prior to them buying these bonds. Some of them are horrible, that you have an issue. I mean, I bet no one on this board can tell me how much it cost to go down this path. what money you're spending by authorizing and directing the issuance of General Obligation Bond Series 2020.
Why don't you tell us what that is?
Because you can't, ma'am. It wasn't provided to the board. I can
Then
give you an
how do you know
estimate.
there are any?
There is. You think they're doing it for free? Oh, honey. Oh, honey. Do you
Point
think
of
everything's
order,
doing for
Mr.
free?
Stern. Point of
Thank you
order.
very much, Mr. Bradley, for your
Well, come
comment.
on. Do you really think it's free?
Please refrain from your
Didn't you
pronouns.
never watch? You're telling me
your
you've
adjectives
never
of our
watched?
other
Hold
board
on.
members. Thank you.
You've never watched How I Met Your Mother? Come on.
I'm
never
not
watched the
concerned
show?
about how you met your mother.
You never watched that TV show? Never saw the lady, right? Never saw the
Okay, now we're
naive
totally
person.
off topic. Forget about it.
Ted, this is my cousin.
Kids, to be honest, I don't quite remember this girl's name. None of us do. Because as this story has been told and retold, we've always just referred to her as...
Honey.
Hi, honey. I'm Ted.
And here's why.
She is a lovely person. Warm, intelligent, just kind of gullible. It's like every word out of her mouth makes you want to be like, oh, honey.
Interesting. Show your work.
My apartment building is so safe. My landlord, he even installed a security camera in my shower.
Oh, honey.
Maybe I should feel weird about giving a stranger my social security number, but the guy's a Nigerian prince.
Oh, honey.
I just had a great TV audition behind the KFC where the executive producer works on the weekends.
Oh, honey.
Long story short, I'm gonna be on Lost.
Oh, honey.
Forget about that.
This
Sorry
is
for being
off
topical.
topic.
We'll
Point
make
of
the meme
order.
later.
Bradley, you're off
Off
topic.
topic.
Getting information about a bond is
I
not
believe
on topic.
in the finance meeting where PFM came and talked about this information for our possible refinancing of our bonds, there is no expense until we actually execute on the process. And they would provide us financial guidance of what those costs would be at the time of execution. So this again is a go out and see if we can do anything to make our financial position better, which we need to do in order to continue to move our district in the correct path.
Yeah, but what they did for free already was the only way you can go forward because our credit rating is so bad and you're going to buy insurance for your bond. And because you're in this marketplace and you have such horrible demographics, you have such horrible financials because you've overconsumed, you spent your fund balance. The only way to pay this stuff is to add tax burden. You already are taking the maximum. They had this conversation in the finance committee meeting. And then after that, they told you it was going to cost $2 million more if you're going to try to even go down this path. They were trying to tell you to go away. And unless you really just want to throw money at them, at which point you're here trying to throw money at them. And Mr. Stern, I'll even go to you with the How I Met Your Mother. Oh, honey, please. Thank you.
With that comment, roll call vote, Mrs. Wagner?
Sure. Mr. David Bradley?
No, you got to have the information first. Abstain. Lack of information.
Okay, got it. Mr. Nathan Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik?
No.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers?
No.
Mr. Richard Bouts?
Oh.
Mr. Larry Stern?
Yes.
So I have 5 yes, 4 no, motion carried.
On the item.
The 16 vote tech and then the 17 QZABs. Total gross debts, about $4 million, a little more than $4 million is your gross debt service. And so that's what you budget to on an annual basis, you know, on the gross side. Because you went through the plan-con process, planning and construction process for construction projects, the state reimburses you a certain percentage times your aid ratio. So you can see, for example, the 14 notes have a very high reimbursable percentage, 82%, while the 15s have a 7% and so on. The net effective is called the local share. That's really your out-of-pocket true cost when it comes to taking in consideration state reimbursement. That's assuming state reimbursement is paid to you. The state has been remiss in the past when their budget issues, sometimes to forego that or to delay that. but this gives you, so you could free up roughly $1.3 million for the next 2 years. 23 is really nothing. I mean, it's 68 grand, but it's nothing to really, balance the budget on or anything. But in doing that, what you're doing is you're taking the debt that we're pulling out of the next 2 years budgets, throwing it in the latter end. And you can see that when you look at column 10 and 11, you can see some larger payments in the longer end. And what that does is that creates for you about $100,000 or so mismatch, and you get to that $3.2 million range. So while it is, restructuring debt always requires you to, I want to say, kick the can down the road a little bit.